Hey, it's Mark David,
Steve Strange,
Toby Leighton-Pope,
Stuart Galbraith,
Simeon Galperin.
I'm Ralph James,
Ted Cohen,
Julia Frank,
Jeff Goodman,
Jamie Adler, and
Frank Wing,
Doug Edley,
David Klein,
Stephen Riff,
Tom Chauncey,
and we're on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Welcome, friends, to Promoter 101, episode 36. I'm your host, Dan Steinberg, joined as always by Luke Pierce. Hey, buddy.
Hey, man. No screwing around this week. We've got the goods for you. CAA's Mitch Rose going to be talking about signing one of the biggest bands in the world while still an assistant, and is going to speak candidly about the state of the industry. We've got Live Nation's Paula Palazzo walking us through her career path and speaking about her new gig, Live Nation Canada. Clown School graduate Reed Belstock is going to join us to talk about the closing of the circus. And plus, we've got Nimbleslick Entertainment's Dave Limentani playing 3 questions and news of the week.
Frank Wing, APA, Nashville, Promoter 101.
Promoter 101 live, coming to a place near you this fall.
Thursday, September 7th, Promoter 101 comes to the WA conference in Seattle, Washington. Featured guests include ICM partners Andrea Johnson and the Triple Doors' Scott Jampino.
Thursday, October 12th, Promoter 101 rolls into Boston at the Berkeley Popular Music Institute.
October 16th, the podcast will be recording live in Nashville.
If you want Dan and I to come to your town, feel free to tell your university bookers and conference organizers to bring the Promoter 101 podcast for live taping. You can email us at steiny@promoter101.net.
Hi, this is JC, Jeff Cohen from Toronto, Canada, Collective Concerts, Turf. Used to be Against the Grain, and I own the legendary Horseshoe Tavern in Lee's Palace, and I'm coming to you from Promoter 101.
It's time for the news of the week. Got some news out of your backyard in Seattle, Dan. Oakview Group was awarded the Key Arena bid. This is an article in from Polestar. For more than a decade, Seattle spun in circles in quest for an upgraded sports arena, never finding a solution that didn't face many obstacles. It may have finally found its path, culmination of a saga that could land either an NHL or an NBA team in that city. Tim Leiweke winning out again over his former employer of AEG. Dan, what do you think about this happening in your backyard?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when I saw that Polestar broke that news, the first thing I was thinking about was, this is cool. You've got some of the most powerful guys in the world, and that should get us a basketball team and hopefully a hockey team in our backyard soon, because Seattle is an amazing sports city. We got a great football team, and we've got an amazing baseball team. You know, as long as you don't count, like, world championship trophies when we're talking about amazing teams. But no, I mean, we've got hardcore fans here. We're the home of the 12th man, and, our fans get up and get at it. And we did win one of those Super Bowl trophies not too long ago. Phil Collins has been rushed to a hospital after falling in his London hotel room with a severe gash near his eyes, which will require stitches. We'll have to watch for updates on that.
Susan Tedeschi and Derek's Tedeschi's Truck Band just announced their November run for tour dates this fall, playing all across the United States, including a couple up in Seattle. Dan, you excited to be promoting some of their shows?
Couple nights in Seattle. They're coming to Portland, San Diego. All those things went on pre-sale and should go on sale in a moment, but they all came out of the box amazing. Great tour to be involved with. We're real proud of that one.
A phenomenal band. Totally recommend you check them out. That's it for News of the Week.
Hey, this is Mike McGinley,
Troy Blakely,
Mitch Rose,
Peter Katzis,
Mike Hayes,
Tony from APA,
Vince Bannon,
Deshaun Healy,
Steve Rennie,
Rick Canny,
Sam Kinkin,
Rob McDurf. Happy to be here on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
We got some birthdays this week. Birthdays this week are...
On Monday, Renee Penix.
On Tuesday, we're wishing a happy birthday to Ed Pratt, the Franks brothers, Tag Evers.
Wednesday, William Morris's Mark Rader.
And Thursday, we got manager David Geller, manager John Davis, Kilimanjaro's Stuart Galbraith, Jeff Goodman, and Brian McFadden. Happy birthday to y'all.
Friday, the Moto Setters Howard Zuckerman, Mills Entertainment, Marcia Flynn.
And rounding out the end of the week, happy birthday on Saturday to tour producer Steve Cook and WME's Kevin Shivers.
Happy birthday to everybody from the gang at Promoter 101.
It's John Finberg from First Row Talent, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Let's get into the Promoter 101 tweets of the week. Well, the venue settlement at the end of the night has no correlation between the deal you agreed upon at confirmation and where it came in at.
Look, some people just don't take notes, and they're simply just flighty. Cannot be helped when this happens. So, you hold on to your email correspondence, you keep the deal that you hammered out in hopes that they'll honor it and live up to their word. Thank God for this email day where it's not lost conversations that happened over the phone months ago. So usually you can have some back and forth correspondence, but man, people tend to forget what they say or don't want to live up to their word sometimes. And that makes it hard because we have to back the deal that we cut the band regardless of what anybody else does.
When you are a soft show, a total stiffing is more like it, that you can't wait for it to play out so you can just move on.
When you have done all you can possibly do to push a date, and the marketplace just isn't buying it, they're just not responding, so you just want it to play out, write your loss off, move on, and do more productive things with your time.
When an agent tries to confirm dates that you know are not available.
Doesn't matter how many times you ask, date's still not going to be available.
When your company confirms a show that is destined to lose.
This happens all the time. Sometimes it's a favor. Sometimes there's an act that you believe in that you're helping get to the next level. Sometimes there's something else attached. But one way or another, you can just feel the money coming out of your pocket, and it sucks.
When an agent sits on a show offer for 2 months and then wants to confirm for more money 5 weeks out from the show date.
Yeah, this just hurts shows. It kills the marketing time, and we can never make up for that.
When a ticketing company or box office will not let artists sell a small allotment off their system without paying a fee.
We really need to give the acts a chance to fill the room. Plus, it gives you a chance to get the F&B, the merch, and the pocket out of the extra fans of those tickets that they help bring in. Venues, help the bands out here. Have a little heart.
When an agent calls to see if you're happy with how the show played out, wait, what? Really? This was a new and welcomed experience for me.
I love this call. So refreshing from this agent.
When management promises meaningful support, but they fail to tell you that it's only the meaningful to the headliner, not to the draw.
It only behooves us all to get real support. It's better for the fans, helps the draw of the show. It's a win-win for everybody.
This one was a hot button issue, so we saved it for last, but we want to talk about it for a minute. So this is actually a post that you wrote on Facebook, Dan. So a little bit more than 140 characters, but a great post nonetheless. Okay, let's address the percentage of gross issue. I get it. In a club, especially when you're going to do a massive bar, but it's simply not possible to look at performing arts center PACs, especially when the data is a four-wall. They're pricey, and everything is a la carte. It's just not realistic in a higher-end venue to say an offer needs to be a certain percentage of gross. You really need to look at each expense that the artist requires and judge the offer by the full deal, including the correct ticket price for the artist in the market. Hashtag Promoter 101.
Luke, what do you think about this? I mean, we never really talk about percentage of gross in the deal. You're really big about crafting the deal per the show. And we go through per ticket and scaling and have the conversations on each date. So you're certainly not guilty of this by any means. But where do you stand on percentage of gross as a concept?
For me, it's just a rule of thumb. You just know that some rooms have hard and firm expenses, and if you're doing markets multiple times, you start to realize what is firm and what you can flex on in the deal to inch up your percentage of gross that is your walkout. But the reality is, you're right, Dan. PACs and clubs are not the same. There's some clubs that are out there that, want your business so bad on a Tuesday, they're going to give you 105% of gross because they're going to slam at the bar. And they have tricks like that. But PACs, they're hard costs. You got labor, you got rent, you've got your production that you're bringing in, you've got taxes, ASCAP, BMI, insurance, all these things that really truly are hard costs. It's not fair to just, bake all of those things into a single line item and just say we need to walk out with 40 or 50 or 60% of gross in a PAC. That's a great walk in some of those rooms simply because from a promoter perspective, there aren't the insides protecting those things. You're a venue that has a bar, you're going to get that bar money. You're going to get the insides from tickets. You're going to get all the things that make the deal work on paper for a promoter. You simply don't enjoy those benefits in a PAC versus a club. And the managers that flex and say, I need 80% of a PAC, well, unless your ticket prices are $200 a piece and a bulk of your gross beyond taxes and ASCAP and BMI are going back into the pot after expenses, that's almost impossible to achieve. So to that end of things, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. For me, it's a great rule of thumb to say, let's work towards this percentage in these kind of rooms, but you have to know and flex what's appropriate.
Look, I think it's lazy agenting in a lot of cases. We need to make this percentage. I'm like, well, look at the deal. Where do you think we should cut to get you there? We can take the ticket up. And it's like, can we? Or is this not the correct ticket price for this market with this act? I'm all about adjusting the deal and having the conversation, but I don't think a blanket, we need to make this percentage, should ever come into effect. It really should be about, okay, this is the expense, this is the cost of producing this show, this is something that's needed, and this is the right venue for the act. With that said, what's the real guarantee that the act can and should walk out with? Instead of just, we need to make 55%, we need to make 60%. It's like, great, I'm sure I can do that in a club, but you want to play beautiful theater. And I think we all need to work together to do the best thing for the artist's career in that particular scenario and not just have a blanket percentage.
I think a lot of that comes down to trust in your promoter, too. Like when we talk about the volume of business that Emporium and Works does together in terms of two companies, we have a mutual trust. We know that some places that you've struck the deal down to the absolute bare bone minimum, and there's some markets that we just have to accept that there's going to be some places where we're not going to walk with that high percentage of growth. So having that relationship between promoter and agent or promoter and manager, I think is pinnacle to that kind of understanding where you need to be able to flex in those things and be able to trust your partners that, you know, you're not getting screwed or scraped from the inside.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Let's move on to the next stuff. Thanks, Luke.
That does it for Promoter 101 Tweets of the Week. You can always follow Dan on Twitter at The Jew.
Hi, this is JC, Jeff Cohen from Toronto, Canada, Collective Concerts, Turf. Used to be Against the Grain, and I own the legendary Horseshoe Tavern in Lee's Palace, and I'm coming to you from Promoter 101.
We're inside baseball today, but let's check in on the construction of the Levitt Amphitheater with an update from Chris Zacher in Denver.
Promoter 101, we're joined by Chris Zacher of the Levitt Pavilion. You're going to give us a construction update on how this whole thing's coming together in Denver.
Yeah, hey, Dan, thanks for having me, man. Deal is up.
Awesome. Can you give us an update on the status? How's this thing coming together?
Everything's coming along great. Steel is up. Roof is coming into place, and interiors are being done right now. We're really excited to get this thing open in July.
You guys are on pace with construction? It's going to open on time?
We're on pace with construction. We should have everything wrapped up by July 7th and occupying the building there the next week. And then we've got our first show on July 20th. It's 5 years in the making and excited to get this thing going.
Who are you kicking it off with?
We're kicking it off with Slim Cessna's Auto Club. Then we have UB40 and Stone Foxes. It's going to be a great weekend. The next week we've got 311 and a bunch of other stuff happening, man. It's going to be a fantastic summer. We've got everything booked up already and can't wait to get going.
Cool. And lots of other things coming together. People can check out the full schedule where?
LevittDenver.org. And we've got a mix of free shows and ticketed events this summer, a little bit for everybody in the community. And looking forward to having everybody out on that big, beautiful, spacious lawn.
So the summer starts July 20th at Levitt Pavilion and rocks through the fall. That's great, man. Congratulations. We're looking forward to seeing you out there.
Thanks a lot, Dan, man. I can't wait to have you out here.
The great Chris Zacher from the Levitt Pavilion, Denver. Can't wait to see that one coming together. Promoter 101. Thanks so much, Chris. I cannot wait to see UB40 take stage this July there.
Hi, I'm Michael Yerke from Live Nation. I'm the president of talent for House of Blues Entertainment at Live Nation, and you're here at Promoter 101.
This week, Dan was down in L.A. and caught up with CAA's Mitch Rose at the Sunset Marquee.
So excited to have you, my friend. How's the world of Denver?
It's great, man. Excited to be back in town after chopping up my foot with a hatchet after camping up in Winter Park this weekend.
Damn, that doesn't sound good at all. You going to be okay?
Yeah, man. I'll be back in the office at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Love it. Let's jump right into 3 questions. What do you got for us?
Okay, so I was wondering, what are the main mistakes you see young agents make?
You know, it really bugs me when they sell shows to other people. That's the worst. You know, it came out this week, the percentage of gross thing. It really gets to me where they don't look at the deal. They just look at the walkout and the guarantee, and they don't actually think about the actual value of the ticket price and the expenses per the size of the room for the market and the actual going right for those things versus just percentage of gross. That drives me nuts.
That makes sense. And next up, so a lot of my acts are basically in the stage of graduating from menu venues and bars and restaurants and jumping into the club size rooms. And a lot of these club size rooms are a little bit too big for my acts. So I'm looking at, markets that have legit club size rooms that are 300, 400, 500, 600 cap, but my acts are legitimately worth, 60, 75, 100, 125 tickets in the market. So I'm kind of curious, obviously we don't want the room to be half full. That never looks good. And, if I'm going into a market where I either play, free show at a bar or I'm, taking a 500 cap room for an act that's only going to sell 100 tickets, what would you do in that scenario?
I would certainly try to set it up with like tables and chairs. That cuts the capacity down about 70% of what the original capacity is on the big side, and usually 50%, if not more. I would also look at some kind of promotion where you're teaming up with other acts in the market so you can make sure there's some draw there and pay the favor back when they play your market. Yeah, what's your final question, man?
All right, so when pitching an act that, say you're not familiar with, what are you looking for in an act aside from hard ticket value in your specific market when looking at an act that, you're not familiar with or you don't have any name recognition value?
I'm all about the social numbers right now. I want to see what their numbers are on Twitter and Facebook, Spotify. I really want to see what they're doing on Pandora. I want to know that they're actually being listened by people and they're following and there's interaction and there's growth and there's somebody cares, that they're stimulating an audience and somebody's going to be willing to leave their TV, come out of the house after they get home from work to see this act on stage. That's what I'm looking for, and those social numbers really happen. So when somebody sends me an act that says they got 72 followers on Twitter and their Facebook numbers are under 1,000 and Instagram is like 6 people and they've never posted, I'm terrified. David, thank you so much for playing 3 questions with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Mitch was so forthcoming, and what a great interview. You can totally see why his longevity in the industry has been so amazingly long. Well done, sir.
Hey everyone, this is Cindy Leinott,
Bruce Solar,
Ali Spagnola,
Ari Herstand,
Jabo Lewis,
Michael Yerke,
John Meglin,
David Ritz,
Larry Butler,
Andy Gould,
John Finberg,
Kara Finkenberg,
Jonathan Shank,
you are listening to Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
This week we are treated to the charm and grace of Live Nation Canada's Paula Palazzo. Promoter 101, we're at the Sunset Marquee, and I'm joined by Mitch Rose. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Life's great.
Thanks for taking the time to join us.
For sure. Love your podcast.
I appreciate that you listen. You guys have quite the roster at CAA, but let's talk about the early days. Who's the first band you ever signed?
Well, when I was an assistant at CAA Music Department, we're halfway through its 34th year, and I was the first assistant/trainee in the music department. There were 3 agents, Rob Light, Tom Ross, and Hal Lazareff. And I used to go out to all the clubs in L.A., and there was a band that I was attracted to and I thought was great, and I became friends with. There was a band named Candy. And the principal in Candy and the songwriter in Candy was a guy named Jonathan Daniel, who is now known as JD, head of Crush Management. And Jonathan had this band that I thought was great. It was a pop-punk band, and they were signed by Polygram Records, and their record came out, and I wanted CAA to sign them. But their manager at the time was a man named Howard Marks, who was also Kiss's manager. And he wanted them to go to ICM, which represented Kiss at the time. We had a tour of Rick Springfield with an opening act called Corey Hart. Corey Hart got mono and fell off the tour, and I was able to get Candy, the Rick Springfield tour. And Howard Marks was so impressed by that he introduced me to Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. And I signed Kiss as a client when I was an assistant at CAA 6 months into my career in the music business.
As an assistant, you were allowed to sign Kiss.
Well, when it became apparent that I was going to sign him, Tom, Rob, and Hal did everything they could to help me sign the band.
Probably got a promotion pretty quick and being an agent at that point.
It's a good life lesson of sign an act that makes money will help elevate your career very quickly.
That's pretty amazing. So your job security has been one agency all the way through since the assistant days.
Last February was my 35th year at CAA. And I couldn't find a better place to work that still excites me, motivates me, thrills me. I work with people who are my family, and every day I'm inspired when I go to work. That isn't to say I don't have good days and bad days like we all do, but I love CAA. I love what it has to offer. I love that it's a company with a heart, and I love being able to go to work and work with the people and the clients that I get to work with every day.
Kiss is one of those bands that likes to work. Their live show is paramount for them and always has been. They've continued to find ways to tour without overplaying the same markets. Last year, you guys went out and played secondaries and tertiaries that they probably hadn't been to in years or ever. How did that wind up going for you guys?
You know, the interesting thing is America, because we just represent Kiss in America, probably has 200 potential places for bands to play. But what happens with most bands is they focus on the 40 major markets, and they play them year after year after year. And every time you go outside the 40 to the next 40 or the next 40, and certainly the 80 through 120 cities, when they get shows, they come out because they don't get the kind of entertainment. And if you price it right, you can go to Grand Forks and Moose Jaw and sell tickets. And that's what KISS wanted to do. They wanted to continue working, and we didn't want to go play majors again. And we went out there, and the tour was incredibly successful, playing all the secondary, tertiary, and I don't know if the word is fourth dairy, but they played fourth dairies.
I think we call them the Ds. Yeah, none of those markets have sheds for the most part. Those are arena shows, those little hockey arenas and what have you.
Yeah.
It seems like there's less traffic there. You're not fighting for, the on-sale dates or the attention of the radio stations. You own radio.
Yeah, not only that, you're probably one of the only sources of entertainment in the month. Whereas any city in North America, any major city in North America has hundreds of entertainment options for the consumer dollar every month. You go to these out-of-the-way places, and the focus is totally on you.
So when you're playing a Billings or a Missoula with a larger act, do you think you're getting people that may not necessarily be the biggest KISS fan in the world, but they just happen to be in the lifestyle of that genre and want to see some of those shows on top of the biggest KISS fans that are in that area?
Yeah, I would venture to say you get 10 or 20% of people who might not have gone, but say, you know what, I'm going to go check it out, especially if, again, it's priced right. But funny thing is, there's KISS fans everywhere, and when you go to those places, what's amazing is how many people come with makeup on and bring their kids, and their kids have makeup on.
You were just telling me before we started that when they originally put the makeup back on, that it was part of the deal. The promoters came in makeup too.
Yeah, so when they did the reunion tour, probably almost 20 years ago, in the rider it was that the promoter had to put makeup on of their favorite KISS character. So every city we went to, there was another promoter wearing makeup. And shockingly, I think all the promoters enjoyed putting makeup on, and you take from that whatever you want.
Was there any pushback from any of them?
Not at all, and they got into it. And probably at future KISS dates were like, how come we don't have to wear makeup?
I think it's a pretty cool thing, and it was neat because Polestar ran them all, and it was fun to look every week and see who else was in makeup. It was fun to see Pam Moore totally makeuped out with KISS. That was cool.
Yeah, but Pam wears makeup on a regular basis. The
Not
funnier
like that.
thing was seeing the male promoters wearing makeup. And again, I think they really enjoyed it.
Did you ever don the makeup for KISS?
Luckily or not, I was never asked to, but I certainly would have had they asked.
You work with a number of other bands. What's on your plate right now?
Just launching the Katy Perry tour and the Harry Styles tour, among others.
Katy Perry's playing bigger rooms, and the roll-up for that's been quite massive and is everywhere and currently going everywhere. Saturday Night Live appearance just happened. The rollout on that just seems absolutely massive.
Yeah, Katie works it, and I think her being a judge on Idol, which was just announced, is going to be a great thing for her. But, it doesn't matter that she's a superstar. She still is doing carpool karaoke and Saturday Night Live and the Today Show and Ellen and every other way of getting the message out that she has a tour and a record.
When one tour is sold to one promoter in that scenario, and it's one call does it all, it's got to change the job a little bit because the tour deal's in place. Is it then about the venue and the ticket prices and the scaling of the house that your job becomes?
Well, for me, my role doesn't change whether it's one promoter or 50 promoters. I'm a hands-on agent, and I want to be involved in everything. I think you could choose to make the deal, have it signed, and sit back and have somebody tell you what the routing is and what cities we should play and what buildings and what the ticket price is and take a passive stance. I've always taken a very, very not only active stance, but lead stance in routing the tour, picking the venues, dealing with the ticket prices, obviously in concert with the promoter, but I'm very involved with anybody who has a tour deal.
Well, it's got to be super convenient because Brian Murphy's just down the street and you guys can sit and route that out together, I assume?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with AEG on that tour in the last couple months, and I've spent a lot of time with Live Nation on the Harry Styles tour in the last couple months.
Everything to everyone.
We're very agnostic.
So the agency's on top of the world. You guys have had an amazing run where you're the king of the mountain and have been for quite some time. Is there a constant move forward that now that America's a jewel for you guys to start looking at more of the global market and opening up internationally?
Well, we always booked internationally even before we had a London office. Chris Dawson's been with us 25 years and has always booked around the world. So it's really not a new thing for us. Emma Banks and Mike Greek have been with us 12 years and run our London office. And so we have always wanted to be in the worldwide business. It's not just domestic. We always want acts worldwide.
Is that going to continue to branch out? Will there be more offices?
I don't think there'll be more offices. CAA has a China office that we utilize when our acts go to China, but in terms of booking, I think LA, New York, Nashville, and London will probably be it for us.
When those offices have all grown, you guys have moved into bigger places in all those markets. This constant growth as the company gets bigger, is that harder to manage?
The way technology is today and the way communication is today, it's seamless how we manage the various offices. We have a room in all the offices called the Cisco room. And the clarity when you do a conference with someone who's in London or Beijing and LA, it's almost like you feel you can reach across the room and touch them. So people are always communicating, and it's not been a challenge at all. We have leadership in every office, so it's never been a problem.
Okay, so I get this question a lot from a lot of people. How do you get into the mailroom, and how do you move out of the mailroom? What is that step to actually get a job with CAA?
Well, the process has changed a lot since I started. When I started actually in the mailroom, and the first rule of mailroom is get out of the mailroom, and you just want any job.
But you got to get in first.
But you got to get in, and in those days it wasn't so hard to get in because nobody knew what CAA is. These days, the entry to CAA is to be an assistant, and you start as an assistant, and you make yourself known, and you cover shows and you network within the halls of the company. And then if the leadership group thinks that someone is on the track, we will take them out of being an assistant and put them in the mailroom. These days, they only have to go into the mailroom for 3 months. It's a 3-month process where they learn the company, they learn the different areas of the company. And because CAA has gotten to be such a big company, it really serves them right when they become an agent to really know how the company is and works and helps them. But it's only a 3-month process now.
But if you can't make it 3 months in the mailroom, you probably can't handle the beat of being an agent.
Well, interesting that you say that, because when I went through the mailroom, I was in the mailroom for 9 months. And I think the mailroom was a great weeding out process because, as you say, you wouldn't put up with what you have to put up with if you weren't committed and driven. And some of the shit you had to deal with in the mailroom. Can I say shit on a podcast?
We're on the internet.
Okay, good. Some of the shit you had to put up with in the mailroom was good training for being in the client service business where you put up with shit on a daily basis.
Okay, so you get to that next level where people have decided you're good enough and you've made it out of the mailroom because you've done your 3 months, you've gotten on somebody's desk, and you just have to do it better and quicker and more efficiently than everyone else.
You know what's interesting? Personality, I think, plays a big role in somebody getting ahead in life. And what's amazing to me is someone has a personality. You know right away if somebody gets it or not. We had a young kid who was actually in our New York office named Tommy Bruce. And Tommy Bruce was the best assistant and the best trainee I have ever seen, because you just knew when he became an agent, he would be incredible. And you felt confident when he was an assistant that you could put him in a room with an artist and manager and he would connect with them. Tommy Bruce unfortunately left us about a year ago to work with Jeffrey Azoff and be manager of Harry Styles and Meghan Trainor and start Full Stop Management, and he's doing an incredible job. But my barometer is Tommy Bruce. I always say now to the other agents when we're talking about somebody, are they Tommy Bruce?
Well, at least when he left, he brought his axe back to you.
Yeah, if he didn't, we would have had a big problem with him.
Okay, so the big question I'm sure you get all the time is, what's the difference in your mind between William Morris and CAA?
Well, I can only talk about CAA, so I can only tell you what we offer our clients is a full-service suite of services to help them in their career. And as the record companies have gone away from offering ancillary services, we have bulked up those kind of services. So we have a full-time marketing department to help marketing all the shows. We have a full-time soundtrack department, sponsorship department. If somebody wants to act, we have a dedicated agents who are there for the musicians that want to act. We try and give our clients opportunities that they wouldn't get anywhere else. Interestingly enough, 2 years ago, Michael Bolton came back to CAA. And Michael Bolton is not the coolest or sexiest artist. But CAA, in the 2 years that he's been back, Michael has been on 4 network TV shows. He's had 5 network commercials. He's been in movies. He's had songs in movies. We booked him worldwide. And the job we've done with Michael Bolton, as unsexy as it sounds, really shows, I believe, how good we are as an agency, because his name is not the first name that casting directors would come up with when they want a musician in a TV show or a movie or a commercial.
Yeah, the things that he's done with the music videos with the Saturday Night Live kids are incredible.
Incredible. I mean, he reinvented himself, and I give him all the credit for being someone who was able to laugh at themselves and put themselves in a position to not take it personally and to have fun with it. But it's really amazing how it's resurrected his career. The one thing I'll add about Michael Bolton, when I became an agent, I always wanted to sign what I thought were cool acts. And then told you the story about how I signed Kiss. And when I signed Kiss, my friend, as we were growing up in the business, Mark Geiger, called me up and said, hey, we had this pact that we were only going to sign cool acts. And I said, yeah, but you know what? I decided I want bread, not cred. And that's sort of been my mantra in saying that doesn't mean I don't want to represent cool acts.
When you say cool, do you mean cool like the Struts cool? Or because it's hard to say that Kiss isn't a cool act.
Excellent point, and it's all in, how somebody looks at things. But somebody might not say...
I would argue that Engelbert Humperdinck is not a cool act.
Fair enough, but Engelbert Humperdinck... I haven't said Engelbert Humperdinck in the conversation with the music business, I think, in my whole life. So thank you for giving me that new experience. My thing is, and what I try to teach to the young agents at CAA, is opportunity should not be clouded and shaded by what you think is cool. Okay, what's really cool to me is to be successful. What's really cool to me is to be able to provide a great life for my wife and kids. And yes, it might be with cool, but as an agent, I've always wanted to represent everyone who is interesting to me. So acts that I've signed over my career run the gamut from Kiss to Katy Perry to Harry Connick. I just signed a Chinese artist named Long Long, who's a world-famous pianist. I was Robin Williams' agent. I'm Bill Maher's agent. I was Howie Mandel's agent. It never mattered to me who they were as long as I thought they were talented and I thought there was an audience out there for them that I thought I could sell them and help their career.
So cool in their genre.
Well, again, I don't know if... Is Katie cool? She's cool because she sells out arenas.
She's certainly relevant.
Relevant's a different word. Relevant's a good word. But again, I've been an agent at CAA for 33 years.
And yes, by the way, Katie is cool.
Yeah, I think so too. Very cool. 31 years ago, I wanted to get into a golf tournament in Pebble Beach. And the way I got in the golf tournament is Rob Light did an incredible job agenting me and told me that I had to become Gino Vanelli's agent, who was managed by John Barrick. Because John Barrick had this awesome golf tournament in Pebble Beach called the Kelly Barrick that I was desperate to play in. I did a great job for Gino Vanelli. I got invited to the golf tournament. And let me tell you something. Gino Vanelli is the most uncool. He is to the right.
Like the Italian PBS guy, right?
Yeah. You might say Engelbert Humperdinck. I would say Gino Vanelli. I got into
Maybe we could package them.
Yeah. You can promote him. I'll try and get you as many dates as I can, although I no longer work with Gino. Got into the golf tournament, got to know John, said to me, I was a young agent at the time, I want you to sign REO Speedwagon. Now, looking in the mirror, I hated REO Speedwagon when they were a big act in the 70s. It was the antithesis of my deadhead love of music. But I said, I want to go to Pebble Beach every year, I'm going to sign them. And REO Speedwagon is still a client 31 years later, and I would venture to say they're top 15 on the list of who's paid CAA the most commission the time we've been an agency. And REO works every year. REO plays fairs. REO plays festivals. REO headlines. REO packages. It's now done out of our Nashville office. But I am proud that I signed REO Speedwagon to CAA. They helped build CAA.
So let me ask you about REO, because I've always had this thought when I see them announce the summer package, because it's usually REO Sticks REO. And it's become like, you can't hear We Will Rock You without then hearing We Are the Champions, like one after the other on the radio. Are the bands like summer like married together?
I don't think they're married together, but I think that it just shows the power of the package. The power of people going to shows and knowing the hits and wanting to sing them. And, the quote-unquote heritage part of our business is probably 40 to 50% of the artists that we represent, and they work year after year. Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire, Lionel Richie, Styx, REO, year after year after year. And now what's happening, those were the 80s bands. Now the 90s bands are becoming the heritage bands, and soon it will be the 2000 bands. And there's no disrespect meant in saying heritage. Heritage just means you've been around for a while. We have a tour this summer of Matchbox 20 and Counting Crows, and it's a, soccer mom's dream and is doing incredible. And when you give people 1 and 1 equals 5 for the right price with lots of hits, people want to go to the shows.
Well, let's talk about that. Now, there's more and more of the acts as you watch the year-end grosses come in for the top 200 tours, that there were the acts that we keep being warned about the industry won't have very much longer. They're the acts that headline the things like the Classic and Desert Trip. They're the heritage acts, but they're the ones that people pay for. Is that a concern that we don't have future headliners?
I think out of nowhere people emerge that you didn't see, number one. Number two, I think nostalgia is a huge driver for people. And, 7 years ago, Jared Paul came in to see Daryl Eaton and I and said, I'm putting a band together and I want you guys to be the agents. And the band was New Kids on the Block. And Jared left, and we were very thankful to be the agents. And Daryl and I thought to ourselves, okay, we'll book them in some fairs. We'll make a little money. The first tour we did with New Kids on the Block did $52 million. And every other year, they have played and sold out 40 to 50 city arena tour. And I went to the first show in Toronto, and what was incredible to me is mid-30s, late 30s women, and they were recapturing that moment in time when they were 16 years old and screaming their heads off. And every generation has that. I don't know necessarily who that is. I mean, this summer we represent Tears for Fears, and Tears for Fears and Hall & Oates is doing incredibly well. So every generation has what will become their heritage act. And I do think that there will always be, maybe not as many as today, but there will always be acts that people want to go see shows to.
Now, there's more stadium shows than we've ever seen before. It's not new that U2's playing the stadiums. They play the stadiums every other tour. The Stones play the stadiums every other tour. But you're seeing more of Petty's playing a lot of stadiums. You're seeing Billy Joel play stadiums. You're seeing more stadium tours roll out than ever. Is that the future of the business?
Excellent question. It has blown my mind two things. One, how many people still want to go to stadiums? Because from a fan perspective, I think it's a terrible experience. And I've been to many stadium shows. And if you don't have the first 5 or 10 rows, you're watching on a video screen. But people want community, and people want to say they were there, and people want to take selfies and Instagram pictures of them there, which I think is a big driver today of people's motivations because they have the FOMO, fear of missing out. What's also amazing to me is this rush to put acts in arenas before they're ready. And there are a couple artists that recently went on sale, one in particular who we do not represent, but went on sale with an arena tour and did 2,000 or 3,000 tickets. And, I don't wish ill will upon anyone. I hope everybody sells tickets, because if they sell tickets, it means the economy's good and it's good for everybody. I root for everybody. But I think there's been this rush when someone has one hit to go and play arenas, where in the olden days, and I don't want to sound like I'm old and am not current to what's happening today, you would go play a tour of 3,000 seaters. Then you'd play a tour of 6,000 seaters. And then you'd, on your third record, you'd play arenas. And that doesn't have to happen today, but you don't have to go from zero to arenas. It worked with 1D. We went from zero to arenas, and then we went from arenas to stadiums overnight, and everything sold out. We even put a stadium tour on sale before the arena tour played. But because there was such demand and such hysteria over 1D, it worked. But I don't know why a rush. If somebody wants a career, okay, and a career to me is 10 to 20 plus years, you have your whole career to play an arena, you have your whole career to play a stadium. There doesn't have to be a rush. People don't want to wait anymore. Sometimes it serves them well, sometimes it doesn't.
You're right. And by the way, the stadium experience, you're right. It's not a good experience. Sound is never as good. Production is hard. And if you're not up close, it's hard to get in and out, too. Parking's a nightmare. You're dealing with an exponential amount of headache of getting in and out. Although the industry seems to be learning how to do the production better. The roofs have seemed to go away this year on the U2 and Metallica tour, where the video screen is taking up most of the production space, and they're not doing the big roofs. So I'm kind of wondering what's going to happen when we see rain for the first time on one of those tours. But they clearly are going to go up and down easier and be a whole lot cheaper. But there are more dates, and that's an interesting thing. I didn't realize there was that much steel in the world that was built for stages that could handle 12 or 15 stadium shows and festivals simultaneously.
Yeah, I would say the growth of stadium shows, whereas 5 years ago there might have been one tour, this year there might be 10. It's incredible. And people go. Proof ultimately is, do people want to go see these artists in those locations? And clearly at the moment they do, and it's great. Good for everybody.
It's an interesting thing. It's neat to see artists like Beyonce be able to make that jump. We've never really seen urban artists at that level besides the Jackson Family Victory Tour. It's a new world for that to be.
Yeah, Gaga, who we represent, is the first artist to sell out 2 nights at Citi Field in New York. First female artist. It's incredible.
Last year we saw Kevin Hart do his first comic stadium show ever. It seems like a weird play to see an outdoor show with one comic where you can't see 100 yards back, but he sold out his hometown as a stadium thing, and now you've got Jeff Wills running, a massive comedy festival around the amphitheaters, moving comedy outdoor because of the video screens. Do you think that's a movement that could keep up to see bigger outdoor arena shows and outdoor amphitheater shows in comedy?
Comedians are very particular, and most comedians that I've worked with don't like playing outdoors.
Because you have to see their facial expression, right?
No, because most comics today, when I did every one of Robin Williams' comedy tours, he had a screen side of the stage, so you saw every contortion his face made. They just don't think that it feels as intimate. I've never met a comic who's wanted to play outdoors. In fact, we bring offers to our comics all the time, and most of them turn it down. Now, of course, money becomes a factor. If it's a lot of money, I'm not saying that comics won't change their mind. But, I don't know if the experience is any different inside or out, but all that matters is what the artist wants.
When you're looking at an act, what are the things that get you excited?
You're talking about a new act?
Yeah, when you're looking to sign an act, when somebody's approaching you to sign an act, what are the things that you want to see that get you on board?
Well, just for the record, if an act sells out arenas or stadiums, I'm excited. So now that we've set the bar for what gets me excited.
And next time Jared comes to visit you to tell you he's putting another band back together, that'll be...
If Jared comes to tell us, we won't even ask questions. The answer is yes, we're in.
The guy knows how to package a tour.
Jared does an incredible job for his clients, and they are very lucky to have him. On the new act front, it's really an emotional response to their music or their show or what they have to say. It's got to move me. And, I will say a lot of acts today have songs, and songs are good. I don't want a song. I want a career. Yes, and we will sign bands who have songs because you can sell tickets and monetize off a song. But the acts that really turn me on are ones that just move me. And it doesn't matter the kind of music. It's just, I think they're incredible. They have artistry, and I think they're going to have a career.
You guys have very quietly become the biggest punk agency in the world. Daryl and Jenna have, the Green Day world and the Warped Tour stuff and Offspring, and it's like Blink-182's you guys too, right? So it's like you guys have very quietly wrapped up that world and have the biggest stuff in it. And yet at the same time have been able to be CAA. It's an interesting thing. None of that stuff has lost its punk rock ethic.
Well, at the end of the day, punk rock or not punk rock, you still need an agent to book it. You still need intelligence in the agent process. And, we've been Green Day's agent for 15 plus years. Daryl's been Blink's agent, I believe, almost from day one. Daryl helped create the Warped Tour. And again, Daryl is a great example of a great agent who is not typecast by one kind of music. Daryl's Kelly Clarkson's agent. Daryl's Enrique Iglesias' agent. Daryl's the Warped Tour's agent. I mean, you can't get Daryl's Blink-182. You can't get as different, far apart kind of musical styles. But what Daryl realizes and what a great agent realizes is music is music. We all have on our phones disparate music that runs the gamut from hard rock to jazz to pop to punk, to alternative to urban. And who cares?
Well, that's fair. Let me ask you about this. There are so many festivals now, and there's the mileage radiuses, and there's just so much traffic. Does the number of festivals affect what's going on in the industry?
Well, you'd have to define for me what's going on in the industry.
Is it changing the business?
As with anything that becomes successful, you have saturation. And so Coachella started. Obviously, it's the mother of all festivals. They do an incredible job every year. And out of one festival became 150 festivals. And now you're seeing contraction and you're seeing problems in festivals like Fry or Pemberton. And a lot of the festival business is down this year. And I think it's down this year because what's happening is you have a saturation of headliners. And so what becomes a headliner when the Red Hot Chili Peppers have played every festival multiple times, when the Killers have played festivals many times, and now people are asked to be playing $300 for a weekend, and who is determined as a festival headliner, you're going to see a consolidation, I believe, in the amount of festivals from now in the next 3 to 5 years. As far as radius clause, a lot of our bands who would be playing festivals are turning down festivals because they want the experience of, other than a few festivals, of playing directly for their fans. And that's the other thing that's going on. Festivals are incredible. And a lot of very, very smart and creative people have created communities and destinations that people want to go to and that they'll go no matter who the bands are. Has it affected our business? Yeah, I think it's affected our business for the good. I think it's a good thing.
Is it better for the younger bands to get on those things as exposure, or it could actually backfire for getting on too early?
You know, every festival I go to, I walk around and I try and take in how the people are taking in bands. And certainly there are people there for the music, and people are there for the scene, and people are there to tell their friends they were there. What struck me when I went to Coachella 2 years ago is I saw a number of people my age who were there because it was cool for them to say they were there, because they were hanging in the VIP tent and they didn't care who was playing in the music. I think baby bands should do anything that they can to help get their story out there. And if a festival helps move the needle, that they can say they're on a bill with other bands and people will come and see them and there's word of mouth, can't be bad. It can only be bad if they're not ready to perform and people see them live and they say they're not good live. In that regard, that's the only way that I would maybe counsel a young band not to do a festival if they couldn't deliver live. And the truth of the matter is you only get better live being a live band and playing live, and a lot of young bands today are really not great live bands.
As a major agency, it seems like competition in the promoter world is healthy for you. Keeps the bidding process good, keeps everybody honest. As AEG and Live Nation have continued to gobble up the big indies, and there's not many of us left, do you see another level of promoters coming up and another generation coming up behind us? Or is that something you're concerned about?
The interesting thing is you really cannot find a lot of under 30 promoters in the business today. And maybe they just figured out that that's not the world that they want to go to when they got out of college and said, what do I want my career to be? Live Nation and AEG are great, and they do incredible jobs. I personally am not an advocate of one-stop shopping. I love the local promoter. I love the individual promoter. I love selling it territory by territory. And it's not about making my job harder or easier. I just think local people in local markets have a better feel for their market than somebody who's in an office in LA and New York. And again, in no way am I making a statement about my feeling about AEG and Live Nation. I have great friends at both places. They do 90% of my acts as much as I can, when the artist lets me, because ultimately it's the artist and the manager's decision if they want to take a tour deal from an AEG or Live Nation or anyone else. But as much as I can, I try and support the local promoter and the independent promoter. And I think it's really important for our business that they thrive. I think that they bring a lot to the table, and I think it's a sad thing if the independents go away.
And ironically, I think one of our first interactions together, we were on a panel and somebody wanted to give you a hard time and you saw it coming because you knew as soon as they picked up the mic you were about to get hit because you said it to me. We were sitting next to each other. And I was curious how often somebody calls you that you've never heard of before asking for an act that's just way too big for them for your first sale.
Well, in this day and age, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, there was that opportunity when that person you didn't know called you up and said, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing, give me a chance. And we gave a lot of promoters a lot of chances in the early days of CAA.
Right.
You know, the truth of the matter is I'm there to give guidance to the manager over whether I think the opportunities that they have are good opportunities, trustworthy, and we feel confident in the promoter. And I am never going to compromise my relationship with a manager or an artist because I think somebody has a lot more money and sell the act and the manager down the river. So it's always going to be the decision made in the best interest of the artist.
So what do you see coming next for the business? What are you excited about?
I'm excited that people love music and people love going to shows. And as I share concerts with my kids, that we have a generation of kids starting at 6 or 7 years old, depending upon who the parents are, who are holding in their hand a device to connect them to entertainment. And that opens up a whole new world of a younger demographic and lifelong music and concert fans that we've never had before. If you think about it, I think the iPhone is going to be 10 years old, and you have kids who are growing up who don't know anything different than this new appendage that they don't let go of, and they take into their bathroom, and they take to sleep with them, and it's under their pillow, and they take to school with them, and they sit at dinner, and they are all on it while the rest of the members of their family are on it. So I think that's ultimately good, because ultimately a phone is about entertainment. It's about you're being entertained. You're looking down and you're being entertained. The concert business is all about being entertained. And instead of looking down, hopefully at concerts people are looking up and looking at the stage and looking at the artists and being turned on and excited that somebody has the power up there with a guitar, with a microphone, to excite them and make them sing along.
And ironically, just seeing you two last week watching through everybody's video screen in front of me as they held their phone up and watching through their phone, which is amazingly ridiculous.
Yeah, you know, the Eagles, before Glenn died, would always have a thing at their shows where Glenn would say, put the phones away. And they would actually stop the show if somebody was videotaping them, because they're like, this is who we are, savor the moment, live in the moment, and
it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it's actually great that they did that.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you about how technology has impacted the industry in a bad way. I think one of the coolest experiences to get excited for a show ever was camping out for tickets in line, and that it built the excitement 3 months before the show happened because you waited in line with all these other people. You made these new friends, but you earned your space in line. You earned your good seat. We've lost that with the online technology, for good or for bad. Do you think that that's affected the excitement of the show day finally being here?
Well, it's a great reference because I used to line up on Westwood Boulevard at Tower Records waiting for Ticketron to open up so I could buy the seats to the shows that I wanted to go to. So I totally know that experience. I think technology, like most things, has its good points and has its bad points. Certainly the bad point of technology is creative technological individuals who've created algorithms, bots, to get seats ahead of other people. So I think the actual fan, when they log on to get tickets, is at a disadvantage, which is bad for our business. Because anytime you put up a barrier to somebody getting a ticket, you get an unhappy person who has an unhappy experience, and maybe they won't come back again. That being said, I think the trouble our business is in, if that's the word, is the secondary ticketing market. And I think that the secondary ticketing market is taking money away from artists, managers, agents, promoters, is really the scourge of our business. And we as a business have to figure out a way of either embracing it as agents, promoters, managers, and artists, and saying this is a world that's not going away, and the artist whose name is on the ticket deserves a slice of it, or we need to figure out a way through technology to get the tickets in the actual fans' hands. It is incredible to me, the secondary ticketing market, and how much money is being taken away from the artists.
I always was amazed that StubHub was allowed to sponsor a venue with branding rights. I thought the industry would have kicked back towards that, but that seemed to legitimize them, that and their relationship with Major League Baseball.
Well, it's interesting because all of the sports leagues have embraced the secondary ticketing market. And they say we have this excess inventory and we need to get rid of it. And hey, StubHub, hey, Ticketmaster Plus, help us do it. Artists don't want their name associated with it. So even though, you know, Harry Styles will do a theater tour and his $95 ticket at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, a seat in the balcony is currently for sale for $3,400 at StubHub. And someone will pay that. And Harry Styles gets none of the vig between $95 and $3,400. Harry will not embrace the secondary market, doesn't want any part of it, and certainly that's his prerogative, and I support him 100% in that. But the arbitrage, the money that somebody is making off the back of an artist is really terrible, and we as a business, I believe, need to embrace it and take ownership of it and not be scared that somebody who has a blog is going to write something that they, you know, the act is greedy and wants all the money. You know, it's different than a piece of art that I buy for $100 and I sell 5 years later for $1,000 and someone sells 5 years later for $10,000. I mean, a Basquiat piece of art just went for, I think, $110 million in a Sotheby's auction the other day. Now, Jean-Michel Basquiat is dead, but his heirs get none of that. You know, the artist...
Do you think they're entitled to that because somebody bought futures?
No. In that case, I think it's a different story. Because even though it is a piece of art that's hung in someone's home or gallery, I think when they sell it, they know it is moving on and they know there is the potential for appreciation.
Right, and artists know that from the get-go. That's been the thing historically in that industry.
That's correct. When an artist tries to keep ticket prices low and the tickets get in the hands of people who say, oh, I can profit from this. And it's not just the scalpers. What's happened now is that people realize it's become just like going on eBay. In fact, StubHub, I believe, is owned by eBay. So somebody now buys 4 tickets and says, oh, I can sell 2 of them and I can make an extra $200 so I can go to dinner before going to the show. And it's just wrong to me that the artist is not participating in that. And I am a big proponent to all of my artists of embracing the secondary ticketing market. And, you know, some are doing it and some are saying, I don't want my name connected with it. And some are saying, well, what happens when somebody, writes in the New York Post? I had one artist say to me, what happens when somebody writes something in the New York Post that I'm selling my tickets on the secondary market? And I said, well, first of all, the New York Post is here today, gone tomorrow. We're in a 20-second attention span world. The president says something that is much more heinous than selling secondary tickets, and it's gone and forgotten the next day.
And they're being sold there anyway. This is why they're just being cut in on it.
And they're being sold there anyways, so their name is on the ticket. Johnny Reseller at StubHub, Ticketmasters Plus, et cetera, has no skin in the game, and they don't care what name is on the ticket. They just care that they're going to get more money for that ticket than they bought it.
The fan club, the VIP, the Ticketmaster Platinum stuff, the flexing all seems to be a huge revenue share now that has changed the game for not just the top level of the industry, but now it's fading down to club acts, touring. Do you see that that's the future of the business for acts as far as the revenue grab?
Well, again, you call it revenue grab. I would argue that...
I don't think it's a bad revenue grab. I like that it's in the pot.
Okay, grab sometimes has a negative connotation.
Well, it's a grab when we're not included in it as the promoter. It's
Fair enough. Let me get back to you on that. As far as doing it, I think part of the reason that those things came up, it was a way to say, okay, this ticket is going to be resold. How can we figure out a way to capture some of that income? And that is how a lot of those things were born. So it's going to always go on because acts always want to make more money. And that is being done. An act is more comfortable with doing any of those programs that you said than saying, okay, let's take 100 tickets and resell them on the secondary ticketing market.
Well, and they're all optional things that have extra value attached to them in most cases.
Yeah, but I would argue this is a secondary ticketing market. Somebody has to want to buy the ticket.
A couple years ago, it seemed like bundling was on the move, and it seemed like the industry pushed back because the public didn't have a chance to voluntarily say no. They were forced to buy the album. First for $1, then for $3, then for $5, then for $8. And then it seems to have gone away again, which I think everybody is happy about because you have only 15% or so of people who are actually redeeming the albums. Do you think it's a good idea for the act to be getting their music out to the fans that way, or should it be an optional add-on?
Well, I think it's certainly a better way than turning on my computer and finding that somebody has gone into my computer and put music there. Number one.
There was a band that did that.
Number two, I think that everybody needs to make a decision of what they think is best for them and their fans. So I'm agnostic on it. It's not for me to decide. The only thing it does that I point out to my acts is it makes the ticket more expensive. And nobody differentiates and says, oh, well, I'm getting a record. They just see a number that's a higher number than it would have been.
Right, but if a ticket's now $8 higher than it was, it's certainly going to shift the supply and demand curve of how we sell those tickets and how many we're selling.
Again, I think it's on a case-by-case basis that artists have to decide what they want to give their fans or force their fans to have. And I actually try and stay out of that argument because acts that do it get pressure from record companies. And record companies don't want to know what the agent thinks. You know, it really doesn't affect my world. It affects buying tickets. I think, again, you know, depending upon who the act, I had an act do it recently that they had a 60% redemption rate, which is incredible.
That is incredible.
It's off the charts incredible. So clearly people wanted to get it. One of the reasons, and I've talked to record companies about this, when record companies give vinyl as the redemption and not a download, they have a higher redemption rate.
Physical product, but cool physical product.
Cool physical product.
I bet the run on Goodwill the next day for record players is insane.
Yeah, well, I think record players are back, which I think is a good thing. So again, every act has to do it in that respect, what they think is best for them and their record sales. And again, there's a game that is played about being number one and what that means. Personally, I don't think being number one means anything other than in the moment, we're number one. And then the next week, what you find with most records and most artists is they fall and they sell 30% of what they did the first week, and no one remembers that they were number one. And what did getting number one do for anyone other than market share, you know, headline, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not the game I'm in, so I let others worry about it.
All right. Before I let you go, are there any new acts that you're excited about that you can tip us off on?
I got involved in two new acts that I am really excited about. One is named Steinberg. He's a 6'4" Albanian singer with the most beautiful voice. Jason Flom signed him at Lava Records. He's incredible. And hopefully they will find the songs that will turn the public on, because I think he has the voice of an angel. The only other young act I got involved with is an act called James T.W., young English kid, 18 years old, who is incredibly talented. And again, it's going to take time, but I'm really excited to work with him and help him. And hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years, everybody will know who he is.
Very cool. Thank you so much for taking the time, Mitch.
Dan, I really appreciate all that you do and give back for our business. And this is a really important thing that you have conversations with people so people can learn and hear people's stories and hopefully be motivated and excited by our business, which I am not retiring for another 10 or 20 or 30 years. So I still need it to be healthy and good. And thank you again for including me and having me.
I appreciate that.
So easy to see why Paula has done so well in the business. Absolute charmer.
This is John Schultz. I'm Windish.
Charlie from Crescent Ballroom.
Craig Newman.
Dave Brooks. Dave Chumley here.
Dave Ratner.
John Holiday.
Ted Bicknell.
LX.
Umong Shah.
Elliot Lesko.
Gerald B. Henley.
Harlan Fry here.
Jack Ross.
Jason Miller.
Jeffrey Fox. Joe Escalante.
Blair LeBlanc. Martin Atkins.
Neil Dixon.
Nick Farkas.
Paula Palazzo.
And I'm on Promoter 101.
Promoter 101.
Promoter 101!
Coming up next, from Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey's Clown College, a true graduate, Reed Belstock talks about the circus coming to an end. Welcome, Reed. Promoter 101, we're Canadian Music Week, and I'm joined in the suite with an old friend.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here, Paula.
You're welcome. I'm really happy to be here. Nice to see you again.
So, you've made the jump back to Canada from being in the States for years, but this is home for you, right?
Very much. I was born in Hamilton, but I've lived in LA just about 35 plus years. But it's nice to be coming back home.
As the industry itself, since you guys now control all of the concert industry, you being Canadians, it's got to be a little weird to leave America because I didn't know that we were allowed to send you guys back.
Is it weird to leave America? No. It feels just great to be back with such a company, such a strong company, I should say, that they really do control and run most of the business here. So it's exciting to see the new changes up front and new developments.
Now, what's your part on that team? Because you come into already an all-star team. I mean, Denise is an amazing buyer, and Riley is legendary.
Legendary.
And Mal has got like the festival thing on lock. So you come into this amazing team. I mean, obviously you're added value, but what's your role in that?
So I was brought in as VP of Talent. And when I started, Eric Hoffman was brought over from the Vancouver office. He is now president of Live Nation Ontario.
So if Eric dies, you take over?
It's not going anywhere. It's an amazing, strong team, and I feel like I add some value in the sense that I come in from LA with, different relationships, different mindset, different skill set. I've worked as an agent at a venue and now as a promoter as well in different capacities. So I feel like I have a really well-rounded view of the business. So I think that my skill set really fits in and complements what's already in this office.
Now, I remember one of our earlier conversations when I first met you, I don't know how many years ago, but I talked about how scary it would be to live in a market that had agents reading the weekly, and this is when print mattered, but you had agents seeing every little mistake, so things had to be perfect, and there was that extra edge of everything needs to be right, because if the date's wrong in the ad or something's off, the agent's going to see it at the same time that the fans see it. And you said there was another side to that knife that you would access to the agent, and you could see them almost any given time. If something was on your mind, you could walk in and see them, which occurred to me at some point that was brilliant. You were right. The other side of that coin is a brilliant side of that coin. They can pass in person, but if you can show up at their door 10 minutes later and be like, no, I want to fight for this, which is a genius thing. Now that you've removed from that social circle of seeing those just guys randomly at dinner or at lunch, being out of LA, has that changed the relationship that you're used to?
I don't think so. I think that because I've developed and really cultivated my friendships and relationships there. And I'm proud to say and honored to say, like, a lot of those people are my friends. So even though I'm here 3,000 miles away from LA, I'm still on the phone with them and still in discussions and conversations and pick up where we left off. So the good thing is, like, because like I said, I've been doing this for so many years, a lot of them are my friends. And a lot of them I can just call them and we can have conversations about their artists, their life. Really hasn't changed.
So you can be friends with agents?
Absolutely.
Mind-blowing idea. So what are you excited about with what's going on in the industry? What are you focused on that you've really charged up about?
In general or just here up in Canada?
It's a wide open question. Wherever you're excited about at the moment.
You know what? I have to say I'm really grateful that I don't ever feel like this is a quote unquote job. Like, I love being in music and I'm super excited about all the new talent that's coming up. And I'm really excited about seeing the new Canadian talent. Like, there's some awesome bands out here that are breaking, that are making some noise. And that's what I'm really excited about. And to be a part of it, now to be up here specifically working with a lot of these artists and working for such an amazing company that really cultivates talent, it's great.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I was talking to Jason Miller about Live Nation's place in Asia, not including developing much talent locally. It's about importing talent, and there are enough local promoters that do that. Canada seems different because there's not as many independents here, and now that you guys have gobbled up the union, there's even less. But you guys are very much enthralled in the business here locally.
Very much. I mean, there are some independents, but a lot of the people in my office have great ears and they know talent. They know how to develop talent. And I see that and I'm excited to be a part of it. And obviously we have the touring office and we have a lot of tours that go through our market, obviously, but we have great relationships with the local agencies here, Feldman, UTA, Pecan. So there's great talent and we know what to do with it. We know how to take it from like a Velvet Underground or a Mod Club or a Danforth Music Hall and take it all the way up to the Air Canada Center or now the Budweiser stage.
And it's a strong music community.
Absolutely,
I mean, people come out and
100%.
buy tickets.
Oh yeah,
It feels like London here.
That's one thing when I first started here, I was so excited. Like this is an amazing, amazing music market. Fans like are passionate, go to shows, buy their tickets. Like it's fascinating.
Now, the economy with the value of the dollar, which has changed greatly in the last 5 years, between the oil price going down and the unemployment changing, when it went from 1.1 to 1.3 to 1 and between the Canadian and the American dollar, has that affected the number of markets you're trying to put in the country when you're buying a run?
Not necessarily. It's really artist specific and where we feel that makes more sense. If we take an artist to just Toronto or do we take it to Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec? You know, it really is artist specific and what we feel that their scope and reach is here and what their value in tickets is. So not really.
So when you buy a Canadian artist, I assume you're buying them in Canadian funds.
Yes.
When you're buying an American artist, you're buying them in U.S. funds?
Yes.
If you're bringing somebody over internationally, are you buying them in Canadian funds, U.S. funds? Are you buying them in the pound? How does that work?
So far, I've only dealt with artists from the U.S. or from Canada. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm going to assume we typically pay in U.S. funds.
I imagine if it's an English act and it comes through a U.S. agency, you probably still pay in U.S. funds.
U.S., yeah, exactly.
It's an interesting thing, the concept of having to pay in the American currency because the agency is American. It's a very odd thing. It seems like they're coming to you, they should work in your funds.
I was kind of surprised with that, but that's been going on for years. It hasn't changed.
Yeah, you would think, especially since there's so many Canadians at the top of the business, that they would be able to adjust that. I guess kind of have the gold medals across the board right now and that stuff.
It's pretty exciting.
So with the deflation of the dollar up here, it doesn't seem like it's hurt the economy as far as people coming to shows.
No, not at all.
Okay, so out of the Toronto office, how far are you booking? Because you're obviously booking outside of this one market.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Our office does tours all across Canada. So we work with all of our other colleagues in the Vancouver and Montreal offices. We take tours all over. I mean, me specifically, like I've done stuff throughout all of Ontario. I've worked with our colleagues up in Montreal, through Quebec and all that.
I realize that you're a global company. I'm curious, your office, how far it focuses on, what markets are your day-to-day like?
Day-to-day is mostly in the Ontario, Quebec region. And occasionally, like, we'll go into the Maritime. But we will take artists. Like everyone in the office has specific artists that they have cultivated and they are responsible with and work directly with the agency. So they'll take their tours from Vancouver all the way across or Toronto.
Okay. Who are you working on right now? What's your day-to-day?
It's a full plate.
I noticed that you were posting from Bon Jovi recently, and
Yeah,
with Green Day you were out with for a couple days.
I did a few dates with Green Day through Eastern Canada. Did a date here with Bon Jovi. It's awesome.
Those are good live action shows.
Yeah, for sure. They were all great tours.
Green Day certainly seems to develop from a club band into a legitimate arena headliner, and I don't just mean by ticket sales. Like they have
it's a
arena
solid,
rock
yes.
show from start to finish. It's fun.
Without a doubt. They've really taken it up a notch. I was so happy for them. It was such a great tour.
It's interesting to see because I wasn't sure Billy was ever going to want that for himself.
Oh, he seemed super excited.
Yeah,
smiling.
well, I think the Broadway experience has changed to showmanship, where he's engaged the concept of the show and the performance. To be a punk rock band and come up the way they did, and do a van tour into a cut down arena tour, like they, on Dookie they were doing $15 tickets in cut down arenas because they wanted to keep tickets cheap when the album blew up. It was like, so their mind was always keeping it cheap, but at some point they wrote the musical and they learned about Broadway and they learned about that showmanship, and you can see it in the new tour that they're not a punk rock band anymore. They're an amazing pop band that does this really complex show.
It's very theatrical in that way. Like it's definitely stepped up a notch. Like you could see that they've really evolved and it's a solid show. I loved it because I've never been up to Montreal for an event like that or Quebec City and got to see the new arena up in Quebec City, which is spectacular. But seeing the fans and how rabid they were and super stoked for them to be there, it was awesome.
And that seems like a pretty wide fan base now because you got parents taking their kids.
Yeah.
Like those parents that were skaters, that album broke, when the Dookie first really got big. Like now they have kids that are skaters.
Yep, they're all enjoying the show together.
It's an amazing thing. I mean, it's odd to see that Warped Tour is still doing it after all these years, that stuff still exists. You ever look at one of those lineups and wonder who those bands are?
Crazy enough, I look at them, and this is why I feel like being in the music business really does still keep you young. Like, I look at some of those artists, and I'm like, yeah, I know who they are, and I know this artist, I know this band, because I really still keep up on the new music.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the top of it, or all the way down to the bottom of Kevin's like roster?
It depends. Like,
because I get lost like after the fourth row. I know who those top bands are. They're selling out the ballrooms, but like you start getting down there, I'm like, Kevin, where'd you pull that from?
Honestly, sometimes I'll look at that lineup and I'll randomly just like, okay, I want to listen to this one. I'll just start picking some out because I want to hear what they're about.
Make a Spotify playlist out of what
just
Kevin did.
Yeah, I'm just curious why they're on and what they're about, and let's take a listen. I'm always curious about that. I love seeing and developing new bands. That's one thing I do miss from being an agent is I was always excited about going to showcases and finding new artists and being involved. Like developing an artist, that's really something I miss about that part of it.
It's got to give you a really interesting insight on dealing with an act. Being on both sides of it, you get that appreciation for that dance a little better. And I notice a lot of people are not good at both sides. A lot of people have come from one and gone to the other and can't make the jump. Where agents, when they come over, or managers come over to the promoter side, they have a fierce problem with protecting the artist constantly. Whereas a promoter, your job is part of that check and balance of protecting the gross. And if you can't argue back against the financial needs of the show, you're not protecting the band's back end. You need someone to play the good cop and the bad cop of the deal. Yeah. Like, yes, you can have that amazing video screen. This is what it's going to mean to you financially. Without the promoter to say, you realize that's your back end money that you're now giving away. It's 85% yours. Misses something, and I notice a lot of the agents when they come over have a hard time with the caring about the money side of it as opposed to the artistic integrity of the show, which they're so used to fighting for. So it's got to be a process too. It had to take a little bit of time to...
It did. Again, like I feel like because I had that background, when I am on the phone with an agent and we do talk about certain aspects of the tour and there are some additional things that they want to bring on or things like that. It's just a matter of having that relationship with them and explaining it to them and really drilling down to the deal. But I feel like, and I've been told by some agents, which I've always appreciated, like because I have that background, I do understand where they're coming from when it comes to the offer, the avails, dealing with a manager, how to talk to certain managers and things like that, and how to manage their expectations. So I feel like it's been a balance, but I feel like I've been able to really maintain it well because I don't blow off agents when they say, I need this. I'm like, okay, well, I understand this, but this is the repercussions or this is what's going to happen for me to give you that. So there's always a balance there. And it's just being honest with them and laying it on the line. And they appreciate that. Obviously, I want to do well for my company, obviously. Like you said, you're protecting the gross, but you also want to be understanding to what the artist needs as well.
We're developing careers.
Exactly. We are developing careers.
We're not trying to take away from the show, but at the same time, we want to get them through the market without losing an arm.
No one wants to get hurt.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a dance and
it is.
I find it funny. And we've had people that we've worked with for years or we've seen them go back and forth. And it's like, you're missing the other side of it. The band needs us to do this. They're depending on us to say, do you see this? Do you see what you're spending here? Right. And you know what that means because the money's there, or even if the money's not there, it's like, this is what this means.
It's the same thing when you'll get a phone call and they're like, well, the tour needs extra money. Can we bump up your ticket prices so we can make more money on the back end or whatever? I'm like, okay, but I actually want to sell tickets to your show. So let's keep the ticket prices where they are because as you know, once you start pushing too high, you're going to have some resistance.
Right. And there's a supply and demand slope on prices for sure. The common sense of everybody needing to take an economic course every 5 years to remind them about the principle of supply and demand. Can't we just add another dollar? What's $1 going to do? When you hear that 6 times on the same show from the same person, where we started originally at $35 and now we're at $42 because we just kept adding $1 to cover this extra thing.
Service charges start adding up.
Service charges and the other things that are hidden in there, whatever they may be. It's just like, if you're at a $42 ticket, fans are getting out closer to like $58. It's like, we got to start thinking about how we inch that up. And I love the concept of the all-in ticketing, but now that there's so many different ticketing companies, it seems to have changed that world quite a bit. Although I've noticed in London that they have non-exclusive ticketing.
Oh, okay.
And what they do is fascinating. It's more of an advertising channel. Kind of why discounting works in America now is you have that allotment to people that are never going to see the ticket otherwise. The Gold Star or Groupon model that you'll never find. So they have all these different ticketing companies that have their own lists. So everybody gets an allotment of tickets. And there's a host ticketing company, but sometimes the host ticketing company will get as little as 30% of the show. But all of the ticket prices have to be the same price at the end. One can't have a better price than the others.
Right.
So whatever the fees are worked out on the inside, but it's an all-in price. So a $35 ticket is a $35 ticket on any system. It's gross and that's it and whatever, and everything gets worked out on the inside, however those fees are. The support of the arts here by the government on down is just seen
That
throughout the
blows me-
community.
Yeah, that is something that I am super proud of here. Like, to know that the government is that behind the arts here is something that unfortunately I never saw in the US. And it's a shame because artists here are given such an amazing opportunity between Factor and the OMDC, I think is the other one. And there's just so many different organizations that they absolutely support the talent. That's the way it should be.
So radio is supposed to play 30% Canadian content, right? And this conference alone is an amazing factor of that. It's just like Canadian Music Week, if you're not Canadian, will fly you up, pay for you to be here, give you your registration, give you your hotel room. And normally they'll ask me if I want to bring 5 or 6 people with, as long as they're real industry players. Oh yeah, it's amazing. If they want people to see the acts so they can bring out, they want to export their talent so the world can know it. I mean, yes, it's a schmooze fest for us, and that's why we come, but at the same time, they want us to see their bands, and that's why they want us here. They don't care about the sessions. They don't care about the podcast. They want us to see their act and discover someone and hopefully bring them across the border, which is a genius thing that would never happen in America.
No, we have so many festivals out there, but it's nothing to the extent of like Canadian Music Week. I think this is a very unique festival in that way, that they really do want people to come and see these new developing bands. And there's a lot of them.
It's amazing the talent that Neil seems to get, too. I mean, Michael Rapinoe's doing a keynote tonight. Arthur Fogel's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. John Giddings is speaking. It's like pretty heavy hitters today.
It's going to be a fun night.
Canadian Hall of Fame, does that mean anything up here?
Yeah, people here respect that. People here acknowledge it. It's an honor to be in there.
Let's focus on what your summer's like, what's coming that's touring that you're excited about, and what's the future hold?
Our summer, well, this is going to be our inaugural season, the Budweiser stage. So we're really excited about that. And great lineup of Arkells and July Talk. That's already out. Future, Matchbox 20 with Counting Crows.
City and Color?
No, we don't have City and Color this year. Anyways, we have a great lineup.
The normal classic rock stuff coming through as well.
Yeah, Boston with Joan Jett, Steve Miller Band, Chicago. Yeah, we have a lot of classic rock, a lot of new rock.
And country's big here too,
Country's
right?
very big here. Absolutely.
That's an interesting thing too, because there's Canadian country that hasn't crossed over into America that's really big here as well.
Huge. Absolutely.
Was that a huge learning curve, like learning the national but local artists that are big here that don't exist in the States?
Not that much of a learning curve because I do have a lot of family that's here and I have kept up with what's happening in Canada. Even though I lived in the States for so many years, I was always very still tied into what was happening here.
So you were hip on the Arkells when you moved back?
And they're from Hamilton, so local boys.
They got to play Coachella.
I know. I'm really happy for them.
Seems like a big get.
It's huge for them. I'm really happy for them.
I don't know that they're there in America yet, so that should really help move them along.
For
It seems
sure.
like Paul T gave them some love a little early, which could really help them.
Absolutely. I'm glad that they got in front of a lot of people and it's going to be a really good transition for them.
Have the festival world that's caught on craze in America with 1 million festivals
It's here.
become a huge thing here?
Yeah,
I mean,
we have a lot of festivals here as well. Obviously not as many as in the US, but there's a lot here and we have quite a few as well. Between our CBC festival we do in Toronto, Field Trip that we have here, a few others in Vancouver.
French-speaking world, does that add a different layer of acts that you have to learn to deal with?
A little bit. It's exciting. It's something that I'm tapping into and need to brush up on my French a little bit more.
There's an amazing amount of talent that opens
Yep.
up. Just for Laughs does a week of just French-speaking talent. Then they do a second week of just English-speaking talent. So it's like they can run 2 festivals because they can run different things. And some acts are now doing sets in multiple languages so they can play to multiple crowds. I found very fascinating.
great.
But the concept of being able to open up a world market to themselves by doing that. It's just, Eddie Izzard can do his set, I think, in 6 different languages.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's
Wow, I
fascinating.
didn't know that.
The guy is just amazingly talented, but to be able to pull off a joke in one dialect is one thing, but to be able to like figure out the right word in another language and know what's going to play to
Yep.
that audience, because the different crowd responses are different in different languages. It's like, it's amazingly impressive. I mean, talk about a technician. Yeah, it's fascinating. I saw him do a podcast where he talked about what's funny in Germany isn't necessarily funny
Right.
in Sweden. And it's just like trying to figure that out becomes a really interesting thing. But he's like, then again, what else am I going to do? I'm in my underwear in a hotel room waiting to go on. So I'm busy when I land figuring out how the words translate and what's going to be funny and what's not. But the bellman at whatever hotel I'm at gets a real show. I saw Straight No Chaser in Paris last year, and they're very sticky with all of their comedy in between songs, and Americans speak fast, so even if you speak English and you're in France, you may not get the joke because we speak too fast, so they miss the joke. So it's a very hard thing when you try to translate the humor of that stuff. So it's fascinating, but I think here when you have to deal with both languages, even when you fly, they read the instructions in both
English
languages.
and in French, yeah.
It's like it annoys the shit out of me. I imagine the French don't like the Americans or the English side of it. They speak American up here, right?
Even though, like, when I was in Montreal and Quebec, I mean, everyone speaks English there, obviously.
Right, and they have the both sides of the menu, or the English on one and French on the other.
Fine.
Any of the French acts play down here in Toronto? Is the French-speaking stuff, or does that really stay up to Quebec and Montreal?
Again, it depends on the artist. We have one artist, his name is Bobby Bazzini. He's French-Canadian.
So it's expanding a little bit, because I find it fascinating up there. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
You're welcome.
Promoter 101 in beautiful Canada.
So easy to see why Paula has done so well in the business. Absolute charmer.
Hi, this is Julia Frank from Wizard Promotions in Germany, and we're on Promoter 101.
That's going to do it for this week's Promoter 101.
We're right back at it next week, so you can look forward to some awesome upcoming guests, including Kira Finkenberg, Troy Blakely, Bruce Solar, Larry Butler, Steve Rennie, Michael Yerke, John Finberg, Mike Hayes, Andy Gould, and Rob McDermott. We got Mike McGinley, a.k.a. The Goon, Peter Katzis, Jonathan Shank, David Marcus, J-Bo Lewis, Sean Healy, and so many more.
If you have any thoughts or feedbacks about the podcast, we want to hear from you. Send us an email with your ideas to steiny@promoter101.net. That's steiny@promoter101.net. That's steiny@promoter101.net.
Keep up with us on Twitter. I'm at W. Luke Pierce. Dan's at The Jew. And the show is at Promoters 101.
Be sure to subscribe to Promoter 101 wherever you podcast. And please help us spread the word by telling your friend.
If you missed any of the past podcasts, you can always catch up at Promoter101.net.
This concludes our broadcast day.
It's Ari Herstand. I'm the author of How to Make It in